Welcome back to part 2 of part 1 of Rising, and let's get right into it. So the episode jumps from Antarctica and we're back in Cheyenne Mountain in the SGC. And it's pretty chaotic as they are getting ready to depart. It's a little bit of a montage, and as we move through the base, I get to count some patches of all the countries going along. We've got the Central African Republic, which I had to Google, to be honest, and just because I'm from Africa doesn't mean I've ever heard of the Central African Republic. Spain, the USA, Canada, Greece, Russia, New Zealand, Argentina, I think it's a bit blurry, Germany, Philippines, Scotland, Great Britain, Zimbabwe, South Africa, India, Belgium, Belgium, Japan, Finland, and we know from later on that the Czech Republic will feature as well with Zelenko. So that, as far as I can tell, that brings us to 19 countries. So yeah, well, when Elizabeth says you're over a dozen, it's true, but it's closer to 24. And anyway, I'll keep an eye out furthermore and do the counting. And I did spend way too much time counting badges. Like, some of these are there for only like half a second, and I had to install a program to go frame by frame by frame to get all the flags. So just at least appreciate a little bit of the work I put into this. Anyway, so we also see that the badges are weirdly flipped. Like, the country badge is on here, but the team badge is on the other side for the other country. I don't know. It does make for a nice change between when you get this lineup between the SG-1 guys and the Atlanteans. And we are introduced to Colonel Sumner. He is the mission's military commander. Oh, and Bates. And right off the bat, the two of them are just a bag of giggles, threatening Carson, of all people, with violence. And look, I love Robert Patrick, but I don't think we were ever supposed to like Sumner, so job well done. As for Bates, well, I think I actually dislike him more than Kavanaugh, which isn't a mean feat. Like, Kavanaugh is written in to be extremely dislikable, and yet somehow I prefer him to Bates. Bates is really a little barking Jack Russell Terrier, and I really just dislike the guy. But anyway, Siler gets the flip the switch and the ZPM lights up. We get to see that John actually decided to join the mission after all. He still looks a bit unsure, but you can't really blame him. I mean, Elizabeth said earlier that in the same episode, but previous video, that she had been gathering her team for months now. So I infer that the team has also been getting ready for months now. Like, they have a relationship, they know one another, which does make that one scene where Ford asks if anyone else speaks the same language as the two scientists down there. I'm not going to go grab a screenshot of that. It does make it a bit weird, because if they've been gathering for months now, they should know one another. But it is what it is. It made for a good scene in the montage, I suppose. Well, while they have obviously been preparing for a month, this would be John's first time under Cheyenne Mountain and in the SGC. So yeah, of course he's looking a bit uncomfortable. And then I need all of you to really just take a look at this collection of frames. I was originally screenshotting it to show how Sumner and John got off on the wrong foot right from the start. But then Elizabeth comes walking through, which I didn't get to the shot. But after she walked through, this is John's face at the sight of her. Now, I know, and again, I did not make this montage. I just have really far too many pictures on Pinterest. Anyway, so I know Sparky is a thing, which is the unofficial, it's either way the fan fiction name for the relationship between John and Elizabeth. But long before any of that, the series pushed John to be enamored with Elizabeth. Not romantically, but if I were to guess, I think the writers tried to show that despite John's predilection for doing his own thing, he is loyal to Elizabeth. He's not going to be a problem. I mean, it cuts through a lot of noise, a lot of hassle, including the one nobody has time for, the fact that he, as the leading military man, doesn't seem to have a problem following her as a scientist or a woman. Okay, so I know nobody likes this conversation, and goodness knows I'm tired of it. But every now and then, I feel the masochistic need to talk about the male-female relationships in media, and this time especially in this series, and by that I mean the overarching series, both the movie SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis. No, I started watching Universe, but friends don't let friends watch Universe. It's anyway. So I know in the beginning, especially in the first few seasons of Stargate SG-1, some slightly shady stuff happened between the sexes. But Stargate, even so, has always been built on this idea that everyone is valued upon merit, including women and aliens. Weir wasn't appointed to lead the SGC initially because she was a woman, but because, Kinsey thought he could manipulate her. And initially, when Jack didn't want Sam on the team, it was because she is a scientist, not a woman. But all the women, several of them, have proved themselves capable, and not as men. They didn't prove them as capable men who happen to be women. They proved themselves capable as people within their function, which, yes, it includes emancipation. In Emancipation, Sam does have to prove she's capable of fighting, but long before she has to fight the other guy, you can see that she's part of the team, she's accepted. Jack, Daniel, Teal'c, they all respect her, they all fight for her, they are a team. She has already proven her worth. Just, I think mostly for our sake, they wanted, the writers or the directors or someone wanted to prove that Sam can also fight, so she's not dead weight. Which, of course, when you think about it, Rodney gets the same mini arc later with the Defiant one, where he gets to actually shoot at a wraith. So this is not a weird thing for the series. And yeah, as I said, I think it heads off a lot of problems before they start. And in many ways, this is a much better way of having the conversation about men and women working together as men and women, not men and men light. It's much better writing than anything that have been pushed upon us by stuff like the new Star Wars or the new Marvel or the new Star Trek. It's just really good writing. It has the conversation without having the words. And it shows how men and women can work together naturally without anyone getting their collective panties in a twist or a bee up their bonnet. So anyway, back to the episode. And Elizabeth makes her speech, but as she mentioned in New Order, she doesn't like long speeches and it's pretty succinct. Although apparently John thinks even this is too much talking for his taste. And again, look how excited Elizabeth is. Rodney isn't in this scene, so I couldn't get a shot of him looking not fine, but I'm sure he's somewhere back there looking not fine. Now we get to this next scene, which is a favorite of mine, where we see John has already decided to be loyal to Elizabeth, although you wouldn't think that starting out. After Elizabeth has finished her speech, Sumner tells John that John isn't here by his choice. And John sasses him and it tells him, oh, I'm sure he'll warm up to me once you get to know him. And Sumner doesn't look impressed, so he tells John, as long as you remember who gives the orders. And John, bless his flippant little heart, answers right back, that would be Dr. Weir, right? Also, I notice now, why isn't he wearing a t-shirt like everyone else? Like, look, Sumner is wearing a t-shirt. Like, why isn't John wearing a t-shirt? Is it so that we can see his chest hairs? Like, is this dress code, like, is this uniform code, is it supposed to look like that? Anyway, Sumner doesn't look impressed with either John's uniform or answer, I suppose. And then John just smirks, like, it's so apparent these two are not going to get along at all. And as they're dialing the gate, Rodney finally shows up in the control room, and we get another lovely little scene. As I said earlier, it's the little scenes that make this series. Like, it could have been just a very straightforward story, and sometimes it is, but there are little scenes of character, and I just live for them. And this is one of them, where Rodney and Elizabeth's relationship is really put on the front. Like, Elizabeth is so excited she can burst. Like, she is literally on the edge of bursting, while Rodney is looking like his pet rabbit just died. And so she turns to him and she tells him, seriously, doctor, calm down, you're embarrassing me. And Rodney, still looking like he lost his best friend, tells her, I've never been this excited in my entire life. And it could have been just Elizabeth deflecting or teasing, but either way, it's a fun little quirk in their relationship. I like it. And then Chevron 8 locks. You remember they have to do 8 symbols because they're going to the Pegasus galaxy. And a brave little Malp is sent through to check for viability. And as I'm going through this, I'm really paying more attention to the uniforms than ever before. You know, I was flag counting earlier. And I noticed for the first time that John is the only one who's actually just military, who isn't wearing a military uniform. He is wearing an expedition uniform. I mean, look at Ford. All the other military personnel, regardless of rank or anything, they are wearing camos, and they don't have patches. It's only John who's wearing a expedition uniform and patches like the scientists. Now, I have no idea why this is. Maybe the costume department thought it was just cool, or maybe it's to show that he's the odd one out, that despite being there at Elizabeth's insistence, Sumner doesn't want him there, which might mean that this means he's on Elizabeth's team and not particularly part of the military detachment. I'm not sure. I refuse to Google why. I'm just saying all my theories, and I might also be overthinking this, but you know, he is the only guy with a gun and the expedition uniform. Anyway, the little Malp shows viable life support, and for the first time, Rodney looks kind of happy. He looks happy when he says, well, looks like that when you're not getting out of this. He's such a weird little man. Anyway, Sumner gets ready to step through with just some of his men, but Elizabeth is having none of it. Also, I want you to look at this guy in the back. He's just casually continuing to stack crates throughout all the scenes. It's almost, well, my little pet theory is this is just a guy who wandered onto the casting set or whatever. He got a part. He knew he will never, ever again get a part in Stargate, but he is there. He is part of Stargate. Like, this is a guy, he's maybe a janitor, maybe he's a lawyer, I don't know, but he's got a part in Stargate. And so he just staked out his spot next to the gate, and he has one job, and he will do that job, and he will continue doing it, and he will do it regardless of what is expected of extras on set, but he's sure as heck got to do it. And his mom's going to be proud of him, and his dad's going to be proud of him, and his granny's going to be proud of him. And he's going to show this to his wife and his kids and his nieces and nephews and all the cousins, and everyone's forever going to be proud of him stacking the cases. It's very cute. Anyway, so, and off they go. And we get a little side where Daniel really, really, really wants to go with them, but seeing as season 8 of SG1 is going strong, he has to stay behind, which is again sad because, you know, I really dig the relationship between Daniel and Elizabeth. And I have to mention that in this episode, both the previous video and this one, I did mention it, but they make a bigger deal of the relationship between Jack and Elizabeth, which is, okay, something, but Daniel and Elizabeth were really fun together. And Ford is being a little idiot. Again, at this point, he's just an extra, like, he's on the same level as Grodin and Carson, and I had no idea he's going to be important. I thought he was just like one of the little soldiers they were focusing on. Like they had Bates and they had Sumner and they had Ford. So I don't know why he's there. Anyway, John still doesn't trust any of this. But as he is our stand-in for this adventure, we take the trip through the new and improved CGI wormhole, and we exit with him into Atlantis. And this is our first look at the Atlantis gate. Apparently the directors missed the rotating, the spinning wheel of the SG1 gate, but it was getting worn out, and I think they wanted to have this one last a bit longer. So anyway, no spinning, just flashing lights. But anyway, it's a pretty gate. I like the gate. It's still nice. And this is our first look at the gate room. And then all around them, Atlantis is coming to life with little lights. I'm sorry for Rodney. This is a very bad shot of him, but I was focusing on the little lights. And then Sumner tells Elizabeth that everyone is through, and she relays the message back to Jack in the Milky Way galaxy. And Jack being Jack, he has one final inning to play. He has to have the final word. So without saying anything, he just rolls a big bottle of champagne through the gate before disconnecting it. And I mean, it's a really big bottle. I mean, there's at least 2 liters of champagne there. Not that all 200 expedition members will actually be able to get a drop of it, but it's the thought that counts, isn't it? Also, just imagine being one of the best and the brightest in the entire Milky Way galaxy. Like Elizabeth handpicked all of these people, and there's one bottle of champagne, and still yet somehow you're not the one who gets a drop of champagne. Like you have come all this way still to be not getting the champagne. I hope there's more packed somewhere. Anyway, so of course everyone sets out to explore, some more cautiously than others. So some more with more excitement than others. Elizabeth doesn't let the grass grow under her feet as she immediately stakes out her claim on the office, her office just off the gate room. John, on the other hand, he's actually doing as Jack told him and not touching anything, and yet around him lights are going on, and it's like he just can't win. And then while Rodney and Grodin stay behind to play with the systems in the control room, Sumner calls Elizabeth to come look at something, and John just follows because what else is he going to do? And look, Atlantis is underwater. Sumner immediately says this might be a problem if they have to dial out. And Rodney shows up to say, yeah, especially if the ZPMs running the show gives out and the barrier, there's a shield barrier keeping the ocean away, and if the ZPMs go out, then the barrier might go out, and then they will be crushed. But, you know, at least he looks impressed by the water. And he also called them to tell them that Carson found a hologram. And this gives us some much needed info dumping about the Wraith, about the Pegasus Galaxy, about Atlantis, about the ancients. It's not very subtle, but it is efficient, and it does fit into the narrative seamlessly. It's just, info dumping is info dumping. You got to do it somehow. This also leads us to the next plot point, where Grodin informs Rodney that the power levels throughout the city are dropping. And yeah, looks like Sumner was correct. It might be a problem. Although, why Grodin came in and whispered this to Elizabeth, or to Rodney instead of to Elizabeth, is anyone's guess. I suppose it's for dramatic effect, so that Rodney can give his line, more dramatically, like, "Stop everything! The power levels are dropping." And I just woke my cat. He doesn't like Rodney. Anyway, as he explains why this is a problem, Rodney gets to be as sarcastic as he wants to be. As he tells them that the ZPM is running. The city are almost completely depleted. In fact, 2 are completely depleted, and 1 is reaching critical entropy. And when it dies, the ocean is going to reclaim Atlantis. It is, in fact, already claiming parts of Atlantis. At this point, John shows that he is more than just a pretty face and the bearer of the ATA gene, the ancient technology activation gene. Wow, it's been a while. As he was kind of functionless up to now, but he's the one to suggest that they might find a way out of their current predicament by opening a wormhole, not all the way back to the Milky Way galaxy, but to another planet in the Pegasus galaxy. And Grodin gets to show them that the gate has a shield, to which Rodney gets to say using power, instead of, leaning over and turning it off, but hey, that's Rodney. At the suggestion, there is an entire library of planets, so Elizabeth says, "It's pick one, go there." She sends Sumner to go check it out, and she insists that John should go along. Rodney starts to dial an address, and he's doing the thing that Walter does, he pushes a button, then it's like, Chevron 1 encoded, but as he's going through the whole thing, Elizabeth just looks at him and goes, "Rodney," and so he speeds up the process, just types in the address, and that's it for the series. It does not have to go through the entire Walter Harriman Chevron 1, Chevron 2 thing. And can we take a moment to appreciate that as formal as Sumner is the entire time, John actually takes a moment to give a little goodbye wave to Elizabeth. It's just kind of cute. And the planet they go to it's night on the planet, and they almost immediately run into 2 kids and Christopher Harling. And no, by this I'm not saying not Harling. Christopher Heyerdahl isn't a good actor. I did not know he was starred until way later. But it's Christopher Heyerdahl. He goes with Stargate. It's Stargate and Christopher Heyerdahl. Anyway, we get a quick scene where we are shown that the people from Earth can understand the aliens because, magical science. And though Sumner is in charge, it's John that has to break the ice with Harling. And once they set off, Sumner doesn't endear himself, at least to me, because he refers to Elizabeth as the dear doctor. And the way he says it's very obviously he doesn't really respect her, which is a problem because she is the expedition leader. And although later on they do make a point of saying that the military is not really beholden to her, she's not really in charge of them, although she does direct them. This is just going to be a problem later on. It's not, but at this point in the episode, this is obviously going to be a problem. Sumner is going to clash with John. Sumner is going to clash with Elizabeth. Is not turning out to be the best man for the job. Anyway, they set off to find Taylor, And it's this point, and I promise this is a screenshot of Sumner and Ford. I know it's very dark. Well, Sumner, as they're walking, Ford comes up to Sumner and asks him why Sumner, doesn't like John. And Sumner's reply is that he doesn't like anyone who doesn't follow the proper chain of command. And Ford actually seems to agree with him. Like, it's like, oh, okay. And I can't really figure out the point of this scene. I mean, you didn't need Sumner to say it out loud that he doesn't like John because John is a bit of doesn't follow the chain of command. We, the audience, know this. And this is after all before the second screen nonsense where everything has to be said out loud several times. And yet they included this, so I'm guessing at some point they wanted to make a thing with some friction between Ford and John, like Ford doesn't take to his new leadership or something. I don't know. Nothing comes of it later. It's just a weird little scene. It's a very unnecessary little 10 seconds. And meanwhile, as they're walking, John takes the time to talk to Gento, who is Holling's son, and the writers use the opportunity to tell us a bit more about the Wraith. I mean, we don't know yet that the Wraith and the ancient enemy, that they were the same being, but I mean, how many big ancient enemies can there be? And then we finally get to meet Taylor, and honestly, just by the way she is framed, I knew she was going to be part of the main cast. Like, look at her. She's golden and framed in light, and she's obviously going to be part of the main cast. I have to admit, at this point, I was still kind of clueless about Ford, like really in the dark about his role in any of this. I thought he was going to be a bit of an antagonist at best, like Bates and Ford, the duo of antagonists. Especially after he agreed with Sumner that John is a bit of a loose cannon. And as they enter, it is John that takes the lead in speaking with the aliens, not Sumner. And when Taylor tells them that the Thosians will not trade with strangers, Sumner actually immediately gets a bee in his bonnet. I don't know why his panties are in a twist about this, but anyway, John interrupts him, his commanding officer, mind you, and says that they and the Athosians should just have to get to know one another. And then he lists off several very American stuff to, tail end everyone's confusion. And gotta say, but mine, I do not get the American football deal at all. But or varsity, he said varsity football. Like, why are kids playing football and not the pros? I feel like Taylor in this scene. Anyway, after all of that, they do get to an agreement surrounding tea, although I don't know if John actually likes tea or if he just lied, but anyway, they have some tea together and apparently they start their relationship. And that's where the scene ends. The next scene is the next morning, or when the sun comes up. So this is where I'll leave it for today. It's 39 minutes into the episode, so it's almost at the end, although the two episodes do run together thematically, or they really run together. And anyway, I promise to keep the video short, so next episode next time. I suppose the only thing I want to say here would be that I like how the episode nudged John to the foreground. The writers of this episode took the introductory episodes of Elizabeth to heart and they applied it here. John is never foisted upon us. We get to know who he is along with everyone else. The reason why Elizabeth wanted him in the first place, and probably sent him with Sumner to Athos, was because he has an affinity for the ancient tech. But as soon as he has anything worth saying, he takes charge with ease, and we also get to see he is smarter than we thought. It would have been easy to dismiss him merely as the pilot with the genes, the wisecracking pilot with the genes. Like Jack, he could have been really just a stereotypical Jack character, Jack O'Neill character. But this character might look like he starts out that way, but he doesn't. He will not be limited. He already shows that he is more. He is different. He is more than just a wisecracking pilot. And it also kind of feels like John came on this expedition with a firm idea of whom he will trust, and from there on out, he decided he's going to trust Elizabeth. He doesn't trust anyone else necessarily, but he's going to give himself entirely to this world, this mission, and to the new world he finds himself in. And yes, I know some of this is at the cost of Sumner, but Robert Patrick is a good enough actor that I never feel Sumner isn't a good soldier. I believe Sumner is a really good soldier. He was just the wrong person for this job. Under any normal circumstances, he would have been great, which is probably why he was hired. He probably has a very great track record. But he was unprepared for Atlantis. In fact, I suppose you could argue that life on Atlantis and the Pegasus Galaxy requires flexibility, something that John has a lot of. He shows a lot of flexibility, even if that comes across as insubordination within the ranks. Sumner, on the other hand, is a good, steadfast soldier, but very inflexible, and that is what made him the wrong man for the job. And, from the rest of the episode, what happened there. And that's it. With that, I bid thee adieu. Like, share, subscribe, comment, you know the drill by now. And see you next time.